Alrighty, well, let's get this thing kicked off and get started. Hi everyone. Just want to welcome you to our New and Now series. This is our product updates for November 2023. My name is Alexis Eaglin, and I'm a HubSpot certified trainer here on the Simple Strat team. So in our New and Now series, if this is your first time joining in, we like to cover all of the most exciting updates that have released from HubSpot in the last month, and actually give you guys some real use case examples that are designed to help you get the best results out of your HubSpot portal. So we do host these every single month, so be sure to kind of stay connected with me and Tyler on LinkedIn so you don't miss out on our future events. But coming up today, we are going to hit on our most exciting new features first. So we've got a couple of things. One I'm most excited about is the sales pipeline rules. I'm excited to get this rolled out for a lot of our clients. And then we'll be going into some of the smaller updates that are kind of easy to miss, but we want to highlight and make sure that you guys get that knowledge. And then at the end, we'll always have a Q&A segment. So be sure to come up with some questions, send those in when you think of them, and we will cover them all at the end. And then if this is your first time joining and you're not familiar with Simple Strat, we are a diamond level solutions partner that helps you get more out of HubSpot. So there's tons of different ways that we can help you out, whether you are new to HubSpot or looking to upgrade. We do offer free HubSpot purchasing assistance to make sure that you get the right product mix and tools at the best price that you can. We also do portal audits to check in on your portal, make sure things are running smoothly, and fix any issues that you might have. Also do a ton of help with implementing new ideas and features that we'll be covering today, as well as ongoing support just to make sure things are running smoothly in your portal. And then last but not least, of course, just a ton of HubSpot education brought to you through things like this webinar, as well as the content that we post on our HubSpot Hacks YouTube channel. So be sure to check us out there. So to get things started, I'm going to just kick it over here to Tyler, who will be hosting the rest of that webinar to get us going.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexis. Welcome, everyone. I was talking at the beginning, we've got lots of new people joining us, as well as lots of familiar faces. If you are new, just a quick note, these are pretty fast and furious. HubSpot loves to release a ton of updates every month, which keeps us busy and obviously makes it a much more capable tool for you, but that does mean we have a lot to talk about. So our goal today is to introduce you to these updates, give you some practical and creative use cases for how they can bring value to your company. And then if you find one that you like, there'll be, we can always talk more, or we'll point you to some resources to figure out kind of how to actually implement those. So without further ado, we'll get into these updates here. So like Lexi said, we're going to start with the exciting ones, the ones that have, we think, the most impactful use cases, the most interesting use cases. So there's going to be use cases and updates across all hubs, all departments. Some of these are going to be more technical today. Some are going to be focused on marketing. We've got a lot of great updates on the sales side of things. So if you see an update that doesn't apply to you, just hang in there. I guarantee you there's something in here today that you'll be excited about. So before we get into the actual updates, if you are new, I'll just give you a quick run through of the slide format that you're going to be seeing. So for every new feature, what you'll see here on the left-hand side is the name of the update, and then essentially how it's available and who it's available to. So our features are going to range between private betas, which you have to request access to, public betas, which everybody can get access to, but you still have to enroll in that beta, and then features that are live and available to everybody already in your portal. So we'll talk at the end about how to enroll in those betas. Then it'll list what hubs it applies to. So whether it's marketing hub, sales hub, service hub, etc., and then the tiers that it's available. So those tiers are going to be all tiers, starter, professional, or enterprise. So that left-hand sidebar is a great kind of overview of whether or not this update is available to you, or if you would need to expand or upgrade your HubSpot license to get access to those. So first update is going to be for anybody that is on the enterprise level of any hub that allows for workflows. And this update is called action sets. And what it allows us to do is create some actions and workflows that we can then save as an action set and reuse across workflows. So whether you are an admin that is using workflows a lot, or you are an admin with other people on your team creating workflows, and you want to make sure that when they're creating workflows, they're taking a consistent approach to the steps that they're using, and that format is similar to the rest of your workflows to maintain consistency and have some governance over that. Action sets are a great tool for both of those. A couple notes on these: they are specific to the workflow type. So an action set that you create for a contact workflow can only be used in other contact workflows. Same thing for company workflows, deal workflows, etc. So they have to stay within the same object type. And then they can only be added to the end of a workflow. So as you're adding these to a workflow, they can only be added to the end unless they don't have any if-then branches. So there's no branching. You can add them anywhere in the workflow. If there is an if-then branch, they do have to be added at the end of the workflow. So just a couple of notes on limitations. So how can you actually use these in your portal? There's a lot of great use cases for them. Really, as much as your imagination can go, these can be used, but a couple common ones that we foresee these being used for. So one, a lot of times we've got a lot of workflows to manage the steps that need to be taken after a contact fills out a form, right? A lot of times that's a combination between internal notifications. There might be a consistent nurturing stream that we send out where maybe we want people to be able to swap out the emails that are being sent, but we want that cadence to be consistent. So delay a day, delay 3 days, whatever we have there, we want that to be consistent across all of our form-filled nurturing sequences. By creating an action set that sets those internal notifications, the delays, and the email steps, we can help kind of make sure that that remains consistent across our portal so that we know what's most effective is being used for every one of those workflows. Reusable branch logic. So maybe you've got a lot of workflows that have some kind of complex if-then branching. So, a common one might be, anytime it's a customer, you send them down one branch. Anytime it's a lead, you send them down one branch, and maybe there's like some disqualifying or a branch where you wouldn't continue sending them to any actions in the workflow. If that's a pretty common setup we see. If that's common for you, saving that if-then branch, creating it one time, and then making it available for yourself or other people on your team to use across workflows would be super helpful. And then anything that might be complex. So action sets don't have to be a set of actions. They can be a single action, right? So maybe you've got a custom coded action in Ops Hub, or a data formatting action in Ops Hub, or maybe there's a complex integration action that takes a while to set up, but you use it all the time. So you could just save those individual steps as action sets as well. And just a quick note here. So I do see the potential for this to cause a little bit of issues. I still recommend a best practice of minimizing the amount of workflows that you're using. So if there is a process that everybody goes through or a lot of people go through, it is still a best practice to try to manage that in one workflow. What I wouldn't recommend is, creating those action sets and then applying that to every workflow if it could be managed in a single workflow. And the reason for that is if you need to make edits in the future, if you edit an action set, it's going to edit the future use of that action set, but it's not going to edit all of the workflows that use that action set. At least that's our current understanding based on what we've got in the private beta. And so I would recommend, when possible, driving everybody through a single workflow that manages those steps is a good idea. But there is a workflow action in HubSpot that says enroll these people in another workflow. You could have that itself be an action set so that it's easy and common for the people across your team to be able to implement that action and drive everybody to a workflow. So lots of use cases for this, going to make it a lot easier to keep those workflows consistent. And if you're creating a lot of workflows for your team, making your life a lot easier and allowing for that workflow creation to happen much, much faster. All right. The next one is going to be really exciting to anybody that is using the Salesforce integration. If you're not using the Salesforce integration and you're doing everything in HubSpot, great job. Unfortunately, not everybody can do that. A lot of us are handcuffed to Salesforce for one reason or another. So if that's the case for you, what HubSpot is making possible is HubSpot has a sales extension. You might be familiar with this. If you use HubSpot in Gmail, for example. And what they're allowing you to do now is add this into Salesforce. So it is a Chrome extension. You have to be using Chrome, but it would allow you to take actions within HubSpot without ever having to leave your Salesforce instance. So it does apply to Sales Hub only. It's available to all tiers, but I think this gets really powerful when you're at professional or higher because it enables sequences for you, which is going to be our first use case here. So just a quick reminder, if you're not familiar with HubSpot Sequences is an automated string of one-to-one emails, which means it sends just like if you were typing up an email and sending it from Gmail or Outlook. And tasks. So you can combine automated emails and tasks for your salespeople. And it's a kind of a thread of things that happen, right? So I enroll a contact in a sequence. They're going to get an email on day 1. I'm going to get a task to call them on day 2, maybe a task to connect with them on LinkedIn on day 3, another email on day 4, etc. You can customize that however you'd like. So a very powerful way to have outreach to your prospects. And what you can do now is you can actually use HubSpot Sequences because Salesforce doesn't have a very good equivalent tool for this. So you can actually use HubSpot Sequences for Salesforce contacts. So you can do this on individual contacts. You can pull up an individual contact or lead record in Salesforce and enroll them in a sequence. You can also do it in bulk. So you can see, that's the screenshot that you can see on the screen here, where you can select all of those, enroll everybody that you've selected into a HubSpot sequence all at once. So great tool for outreach. Another thing that you can do is use HubSpot's calling feature. So HubSpot has native calling where you can make outbound and receive inbound calls through HubSpot. Salesforce, a lot of people that are using Salesforce have a third-party calling integration. HubSpot is now one of those integrations you could use very easily. So just a couple HubSpot calling features if you're not familiar. Obviously, you can make and receive calls. That's kind of basic, right? HubSpot also allows for call recording, automatic transcription services. You can comment on call recordings and transcriptions. So when it comes to a sales manager coaching a salesperson, you could do that commenting back and forth. You also have coaching playlists of recordings. So if you are onboarding a new sales rep or having a one-to-one coaching session, you want to have a playlist of recordings that you want to review. You can do that with HubSpot's calling feature. And if you have enterprise, HubSpot has some what they call conversation intelligence. Right now, it's fairly limited. Basically, what it allows you to do is identify a couple terms that you're listening for and surface all the calls that use those terms and show you in the transcript where those terms are used. I expect this to really expand as HubSpot continues to roll out more AI features. So the ability to use HubSpot calling within Salesforce is now possible with this private beta. So how does this actually work with your tech stack, right? If you're using HubSpot and Salesforce together, how does this actually help you beyond those specific things that you can do? So I'm going to give you a quick kind of scenario rundown of what we often see. So this is fairly common, right? If you're using the Salesforce integration, usually what's happening is you're using HubSpot for your marketing, and then Salesforce is kind of your core CRM for sales and maybe customer support. A lot of people don't have any tools for the sales outreach. So the sequences and really engaging with those prospects, a lot of times that's difficult. There's a lot of manual work that needs to be done there. So this is kind of like level 1 if you're using the HubSpot and Salesforce integration. Level 2, this is also pretty common, especially with larger companies where they're using HubSpot for their marketing, Salesforce for that core CRM, and they're adding a third-party tool for that outreach. So the logos here are SalesLoft and Outreach. Those are the two most common ones. Those are powerful tools for prospecting and outreach. The issue now is all three of these tools are kind of based on an underlying CRM. So essentially what you're doing is you're integrating 3 CRMs. We've added a whole new integration to our tech stack. Integrations aren't inherently bad, but they do create opportunities for data conflicts, for syncing errors. They're more to maintain, they're more to manage. So what this update allows you to do, and we were seeing this even before the update, even before this update, but this update makes it even easier, is we're seeing people start to use HubSpot for the marketing, so Marketing Hub and HubSpot Sales Hub for the outreach. It's all in one tool. It's all based on one database. So there's no integration there. That solid orange line isn't an integration. It's just the same tool, right? And then we're still using Salesforce for our core CRM. So now we've gone back to one integration, but we have all the capabilities to do that sales outreach. So if you're using Salesforce, and especially if you're using SalesLoft and Outreach with it, or you don't have any tools to automate some of that one-to-one outreach where salespeople are trying to engage those leads and prospects, this might be a great way to either simplify that tech stack or add those capabilities without making your tech stack more complex. And then, of course, you could always make me super happy and just move everything to HubSpot if you're not stuck with what I call the sad blue cloud. But I understand that some people are stuck there. And so you can always just use Marketing Hub, Sales Hub for those tools. All right. So, and I will say, if you're not using Salesforce today, there aren't very many reasons why you need to start. This is usually just a situation where you've been using Salesforce a lot for a long time and you can't switch because your boss won't let you, because you've got a ton of custom software built on top of it already, whatever. So this isn't a recommendation to go start using Salesforce. I just want to make that super clear. Okay, so deal pipeline rules. This one is going to apply for a lot more people. I know those first two were pretty specific. Deal pipeline rules is going to apply to anybody using sales pipelines and deals, as long as you have the pro or enterprise level. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to kind of have a little bit more control over how salespeople are moving deals through pipelines. So there's 4 new rules that are available, and they're right on the screen for you. So the first one is you can limit the deal stage that people use when they create a deal. So without these rules, I can create a deal and brand new deal, put it in any stage right away. This would make it so you have to put it in one stage, usually the first stage. You can also restrict deals from skipping stages, so prevent salespeople from being able to go from stage 1 to stage 3 and skip stage 2. You can restrict deals from moving backwards. So once a deal is in a stage, it can only move forward, can't move backwards. And then you can also control deal editing access. So you can say, if for all deals in this stage, only certain people can edit it. So there are a couple limitations to this and a couple advanced features. So the restrict deals from skipping stages, you can always move it to close lost. Obviously, deals can be lost, unfortunately, at any stage. So it doesn't prevent you from skipping to close lost. And then when you control the deal editing access, right now in beta, it's restricted to, it's either super admins can edit it in that stage or everybody can edit it in that stage. So we can't say specific users unless they are a super admin. The nice thing about this is rules are per pipeline. So if you have multiple pipelines, you can say, this set of rules for this pipeline, this set of rules for this pipeline. So a couple things. Obviously, the main use case for this is pipeline governance across your team. First thing I will say is these rules can work really, really well, but I would definitely recommend that you make sure your deal pipelines are following best practices here first. So I'm going to run you through our best practices that we recommend to our clients and then everybody else. It's a simple acronym called CLOSE. And so the first one is concise. So we recommend keeping your deal pipelines as short as possible, only representing key milestones that happen with pretty much every deal that's going through the pipeline. Deal pipelines don't need to highlight with a stage every single action that a salesperson needs to take. It should only be those key milestones, right? And so that's where, if you have all of those actions, enforcing a rule like not being able to skip stages would be a huge headache for your people. If it really is key milestones, then a rule like that can work well. Linear, so deals should represent a linear path. I know that sales don't always happen in a linear way, but when we're representing those key milestones and every milestone is a step towards closing, then when your deal pipeline is linear, it makes reporting a lot easier. Reporting on things like time in stage, conversion rates in stage. It also just keeps your deal pipelines nice and clean. If you don't have linear stages, if you've got a loop or you've got hold stages or then they move back, obviously you can't enforce rules like not letting people move backwards. Objective, so we want deal stages to be very clear, very objective. We don't want any interpretation options when we review a stage, right? Because we want those deal stages to be very clear, mean the same thing to every salesperson, and the individual salesperson, if they're having a good quarter or a bad quarter, doesn't matter, very clear what that stage means. Supported, really just a check on this objective. So supported means that there's a record I can point to in the CRM that shows why a deal should be in that stage. So if you've got a deal stage called contact or contract sent, you're going to have a record of an email or a document being sent on that deal. And you can say, yep, that's why it's in that stage. That also allows you to automate a lot more stage movements, which is also great. And then last one, engage at every stage. So this one is, we want the buyer to be actively engaged in the sales process at every single stage. So we don't want to start deal stages too early where the buyer doesn't even know you're trying to sell to them yet. And we don't want things like hold stages in there. If you follow these best practices, one, your deal pipelines are going to be a lot cleaner, your reporting is going to be a lot easier, but two, you're going to be able to actually use these rules to be able to enforce them across your salespeople without just running into a bunch of brick walls. So a couple notes on the specific rules. The first rule, restrict skipping. I'm going to say use this with caution. It may not be worth it. And the reason for that is if a deal is going, like, it doesn't happen very often if you follow best practices, but if a deal is moving really quick, you don't really want to slow that down. You want salespeople like, look, if I had a call and they said, like, it's rare, but they said they wanted to buy right there and I sent them a quote and they bought, that'll happen in like 20 minutes after the call. Like, let your salesperson move that to close one. So it depends a little bit on your business and what your sales cycle is like, but I would say use this one with extreme caution. I usually like to let salespeople skip deals, just skip stages for those deals that move really quickly. The next two rules, limit creation to a single stage and control deal editing access. This is really going to depend on how your business operates. So I would definitely consider these, think about these, but if you decide to roll it out, do so cautiously. So the limit creation to a single deal stage, again, make sure your pipelines are set up, make sure that it really is true that all of the deals, when they're created, it's in that first stage. Otherwise, let those deals be created at any stage that makes sense. And then the control deal editing access, salespeople are busy, right? They don't always enter the information that they should. There's some things in HubSpot that we can help encourage that or help govern that. But if a salesperson, moves a deal into a stage and they do that right away and then go back later that day or the next day to enter some more information, we want them to be able to do that, right? So there are some reasons why you would want that control deal editing access, but just kind of keep in mind that this is going to limit what your salespeople can do and make sure you're thinking about the repercussions of those limitations. The last one, restrict backward movement. I would enroll this for everybody, honestly. I mean, you need to have that linear deal flow. You need to have those key milestones mapped out. You got to make sure those pipelines are right. But if they're working right, there really shouldn't be any reason to move a deal backwards. And so I recommend, like, that's one that we're probably going to be turning on for pretty much all of our clients, or at least highly encouraging them to do so. So I don't like to do a hard pitch on any of our services in our webinars. I like to keep this focused on education. I will say the getting those deal pipelines in that, following those best practices, one, it can be difficult. It can be challenging to kind of see that from a third-party perspective and figure out, okay, how do we adapt this? How do we make sure this is in line with best practices? And the other piece that I hear a lot is like, okay, cool. If we do all of this, how do we make sure we still have visibility into those conversations we're having prior to them being engaged, right? How do we make sure we have visibility into the people we're trying to reach out to? Adding in the layer of life cycle stages, the new leads tool is the way to do that. And so making sure that your deal pipelines are in best practices and aligned with life cycle stage, aligned with lead status, and then all of that is aligned to the way that your business operates is the entire point of our buyer's journey workshop. Clients love it when we take them through this. It adds a ton of clarity. So I'll just put a small plug in here. If this is something you're interested in, simplestrat.com/consult. We can certainly talk more about it. Our goal is to get a diagram like this mapped out to your processes. All right, enough sales, more education. So recommended enablement CRM card. Speaking of sales, this is going to help your team sell. So this is available to anybody in sales and service hubs at the pro level or higher. So essentially, if you have Playbooks, you have the ability to add this recommended enablement card. So we talked a couple months ago, if you were with me, about the ability to set some filters to recommend a playbook given certain situations. So I'm going to go through what those situations might be in the next slide. But what this is this allows you to surface those recommended playbooks in a way that isn't kind of buried on that right-hand sidebar. So what we can do now is we can add it to that middle pane. And the way that it's going to work is HubSpot's going to look at that record you have open. It could be a contact, a deal, a company, a custom object, any object that any record type that you have open. If you have one recommended playbook based on the filters that you have set up, it's going to show you a preview of that one. If you have multiple recommended playbooks based on the filters, it's going to allow you to page through it. So that's what you're seeing on the screen here. There's 3 recommended playbooks, and you can page through those 3. Shows you a little preview and then gives you a button to open it. If there's no recommended playbooks because you haven't set it up or because that record doesn't meet any of your filters, it's going to show you a list of all your playbooks and the ability to search them. So that's kind of how it works. Some of these use cases for recommended playbooks, I went over when we talked about recommended playbooks, but that was 3-4 months ago. So I'll do a quick refresh here. And also there's a couple new ideas in here as well. So ways that you could use recommended playbooks that you would be then surfacing on these enablement cards. One option is battle cards. So you might have a competitive battle card focused on known competitors. So let's say you've got a deal and you add a custom field that says known competitors. And if competitor A is chosen, we're going to surface a playbook that has talking points or has competitive advantages for us against competitor A, right? So this is going to be helpful in like large enterprise sales, B2B sales, or maybe it's product focused. So if we know because of a deal property that, or because of maybe the pipeline that a customer is interested in this product or this type of product, we can surface a playbook that has information about that product or talking points, ways to overcome objections related to that product, et cetera, and really enabling our salespeople to have effective conversations. We can surface relevant enablement documentation. So same kind of thing, right? We know they're interested in this kind of product, or we know these things about their company. Let's surface a case study document or a product information document that'll be relevant to them. So your salespeople just have it right there. They know which documents to use, maybe in a call or to send as a follow-up, et cetera. Discovery playbook for leads marked new. So most of the time, playbooks are going to be a list of questions that we're asking during calls. And so if we have a list of questions for our discovery calls, any lead marked as new in the system, we're surfacing that playbook for them so they can easily quickly pull that up in a call. Same kind of thing for demos. So let's say we've got a demo stage in our deal pipeline. When the deal is in that stage, then we surface our demo playbook and script for the salespeople for those deals. An onboarding playbook for when a contact has a recently closed won deal. Different playbooks for different ICPs. So maybe we're asking different questions in meetings based on their company size or the solution we recommend. We could offer different playbooks there, and different follow-up playbooks based on recent conversions, and an intake playbook for inbound customer service calls. So I've got a customer, there's no current open tickets, but they've called into our service line. I can surface a playbook that is the playbook that we'd want our customer service people to walk people through when they're creating that ticket initially. So lots of use cases for this. Is going to depend on your business, but really the idea here is based on the information about the record, we know that our sales or customer service people are going to need these playbooks to be successful. Now we can surface it in a very easy to use for them and clear way using that middle pane with this new feature. Conditional property options. So this is another one that I know a lot of people have been very excited about. It's kind of one of those things that not everybody runs up against, but if you run up against, it's been very hard to solve up until now. So what this allows you to do is, this is internally, so it's not on forms that your contacts would fill out, it's on records that your team, salespeople, marketers, you are filling out within the CRM. And what it allows you to do is allows you to say, okay, property A had this option selected, so we're only going to show these options in property B. And I'll give you a little more context here in a second. It does both properties, both the controlling property and the property with the kind of secondary options have to be what they call enumeration properties. So anything that you can select an option on, drop downs, multiple select, single select, etc. So what are some use cases for this? There is a lot of it, a lot of use cases, and they are very unique to your company and the information you're trying to track. But hopefully these give you some ideas, and these are some things that I've seen people getting excited about on LinkedIn for their own companies, as well as HubSpot talking about different ways to use this. So this is the example that you're going to see. If you see this update being talked about by HubSpot, this is the example they're using a lot. So specific job titles based on departments. Maybe you've got a drop-down field for the department. So maybe they're in the marketing department, and we've got one field that's got all kinds of job titles, but we only want to show job titles then if marketing selected that are related to marketing. So maybe it's graphic design, CMO, et cetera, right? So we're making it easier for our reps, our people that are using the system, to fill in that information by only showing them relevant options. We could show sub-stages and dealer ticket pipelines based on the pipeline stage. So speaking of Salesforce and other CRMs, This is something that is very, very common in other CRMs that HubSpot doesn't do. I'm actually kind of glad that HubSpot doesn't do it a lot, but if you want to recreate the same exact process, you could now. So what this would be is you've got your standard deal pipeline or ticket pipeline stages. We just talked about those needed to be key milestones. What if there are sub stages that you want to track within those high level stages? Well, now you could have one property that is deal sub stages, and it would only show the options that are relevant based on the stage that deal or ticket is in. So that's a great use case that I know a lot of old Salesforce people will be familiar with those sub stages. This is a great way to do that in HubSpot today. Deal type options. So maybe you've got different types of deals, and maybe those are only relevant to specific pipelines you have. You could do that. State, provinces, territories by country. So this would take a little while to build out, but it would be very handy for your people. So maybe you've got a multinational company, maybe you operate in the US and Canada, and instead of needing to have a Canadian province's property and a separate US state's property, you could just have a state/province's property, has all of that in there, but only shows the Canadian provinces when Canada is selected, only shows the US states when US is selected. And you could obviously expand that across countries. Sub-industries based on a high-level industry. So maybe you've got some high-level industry categories and you've got sub-industries that you want to track in there. Drill down on close-lost reasons. So maybe you've got a close-lost reason of competitor. So your deal, you'll lose that deal, you didn't win that deal, you marked a close-lost reason of competitor, but you'd like to do a little bit of additional reporting. So maybe you want another close-lost drill-down property, and when competitor is selected, it's going to show things like we lost that competitor because of cost, we lost that competitor because of solution, but it's only going to show the drill down options that are relevant because of the closed loss property that you selected in the first place. So a couple things to ask yourself as you're thinking about, is this something that would be helpful for us and our users? The first one is, where can we consolidate properties? So where do we have different properties today just because they represent the same kind of thing, but we only wanted the options to be that were relevant to this use case. So that Canadian provinces versus US states drop down, for example. And then where could you offer the ability to drill down for more information, like with that deal closed lost example I had earlier? So I'd recommend asking these two questions as you kind of think about, does this make sense for you? And would this actually be helpful? So this one is going to be pretty technical. I know we don't have a ton of developers that join these calls. So I will basically just let you know about the update and let you know the impact that it can have so that you can know whether this is a conversation you should be having with a developer or a technical IT team. So this is the ability to trigger HubSpot workflows based on webhooks. So webhooks, for lack of a better way to say it, is just like a little piece of code that an application can send out to notify another application that something has happened. And what this allows you to do is allows HubSpot to receive that little piece of code and then execute a workflow inside of HubSpot. So we can automate a bunch of things because something else happened in another application. So the biggest use case for this is reducing your reliance on what we call middleware. So there's two situations where this may be important for you that you maybe should talk to a developer or some of your more technical team members that are like in IT, for example. So if you currently have a lot of integrations that rely on tools like Zapier, so Zapier is what we call middleware. We connect another application to Zapier, and then Zapier connects to HubSpot, and we can do things that way. Other tools that are similar to Zapier are going to be things like Workato, Trade.io. There's a lot of tools that are similar to it. Or there's an application that exists that you want to have an integration with HubSpot, but that integration doesn't already exist. This might be, maybe you've been told by developers that it's going to be too expensive, or they've got a backlog of things and they can't get to it for a long time. This may make it easier depending on that other application. So just like a quick overview of how it works. So you've got some other application. The application has to have the ability to send webhooks. Not all applications do, but a lot of them do. How it works today for a lot of those integrations is they send a webhook to a tool like Zapier, and then Zapier does things, sends information to HubSpot. Maybe it then starts a HubSpot workflow, or maybe it actually does the automation within Zapier. Again, we talked about earlier, we've got two integrations here. That's two possibilities for sync errors and things like that. It's also another tool, the Zapier tool that you've got to manage. What you can do now is just send that webhook straight to a HubSpot workflow, and handle the rest of the automation in HubSpot. So streamlines that, makes it a lot easier. So I know this is pretty technical, but if you're using Zapier, or if there's an integration that you want to have that you don't have, those are the places where you'd want to talk to somebody in your team. Okay, something that our marketers can use. I know we've been heavy on sales, we've been heavy on technical. So what about all the marketers in the room? I think you'll be happy about this one. You can now finally, this has been one of those things that's like, oh, why can't I do this? You can now finally tag personal LinkedIn profiles within your LinkedIn post that you're sending from HubSpot. So you do have to have the ability to create social posts, which is only available on Marketing Hub, on Professional Enterprise. But if you can manage your social media in HubSpot, you can now tag personal profiles, and it says live and available to everybody. So the obvious use case for this is to increase engagement. We know that people like people, and increasingly so, people like people more than brands. And so by interacting with direct people on LinkedIn, we can increase that engagement. When you do tag somebody or mention somebody on a post, those people are more likely to engage and share. And that can get you access or get your post seen by the people that follow that person, not just the people that follow you. So it adds a lot of exposure. So a couple ideas for how you would use this. You can ask for input on a question. So maybe you're posing a question to your audience. You know a couple experts that talk about that a lot. Maybe you want to tag them to get their opinion on that question. Maybe you're sharing a quote or an article or something that you want to share the author of. So you're tagging a person as the source of that information. As the example on the screen here shows, maybe you're promoting a webinar and you want to tag the person or people that are promoting that webinar, as Ali did with me in this LinkedIn post. And maybe you want to post a photo from an event. So you went to an event and you want to tag the people that were in that photo. So lots of ways to use it, but hopefully that's a few ideas here. Okay, so those were our big updates with the more creative use cases, the use cases that maybe weren't so obvious when you saw the update, like, oh, how does that help me? Now we're going to get into some of the updates where the updates are just as exciting, but the use cases are a little more obvious. And so I actually am this is like one of the few webinars that I've done, and I'm more excited about some of these small updates than I am about some of the big ones. Before I get into this, I'm going to do 2 requests for you. So we are trying to make this webinar the most helpful way for you, for everybody in the HubSpot community, to get updates about HubSpot, how HubSpot's changing, new ways you can use HubSpot, new ways you can get value from HubSpot. So my request for you is to do 2 things. If you could help us out, I'd really, really appreciate it. First one is, if you like the webinar today, please do tell colleagues, tell peers that are using HubSpot. This recording will be shared with you. It'll also be uploaded to YouTube. So if there's any update in here you think somebody should know about, share that. And the second thing is, as soon as you log off of this webinar, you're going to be sent to a very short feedback survey. Any feedback you can share with us, good, bad, ugly, any ways to improve, any other ways we can offer value to you, please do take a second to fill that out. All right, enough of that. Let's get to the updates. So I don't know how many people have contacts or companies in your HubSpot that you have sold to more than once. Hopefully lots of you, especially if you're B2C, e-commerce, there's a lot of repeat sales, right? How many of you have tried to figure out what people have bought from us, how many times somebody has bought the same thing from us, and you're going through all of the associated deals, or you're trying to generate a report? It's a huge pain. Now we've got a private beta that allows us to see, again, in that center pane, all of the line items in the last 100 deals that have been associated to that contact, all in one spot. Shows repeat purchases, shows all of the line items associated with any of those closed won deals. So we've got one central spot to see all of the things that a company or contact has bought from us. So this is available to anybody that's using line items and deals, which is accessible to everybody in HubSpot. This is one of those updates that's super small that makes me just so happy. You can now easily undo and redo changes in the workflow builder. So if you're in your workflow and you make an oopsie, you can undo it, and you can actually go back up to 30 days. So you're not having to go back through, like, you made an update and then, I don't know, maybe, I don't know about you, but sometimes my updates are like, I need to get this done, and it's like midnight, and then a week later, I'm like, oh shoot, I did that wrong. I could still go back and hit my undo button. Or maybe you've got people on your team that are a little bit workflow happy and getting into things they maybe shouldn't. you as an administrator can go back and just hit that undo button. You don't have to dig through all of your revision history. It's still available. You don't have to do that for your simple undos and redos. Just a couple limitations. It currently does not work for any actions that are custom coded actions in Operations Hub. And if you've cloned an action, so I've got an action over here and I copied it, put it over here, it doesn't undo that copying and cloning. So those are two limitations, pretty small, easy to get around though. CRM email permissions. So this is another one that I'm very excited about. I can't tell you how many potential HubSpot clients and actual HubSpot clients have been very concerned about tracking their emails within the HubSpot system, because they don't necessarily want everybody on the team to be able to see all those emails. Something I hear a lot from like CEOs, like, well, what happens if I accidentally track a message with our legal team or an internal message with HR? Like there's some ways around not tracking those, but some things you might want logged in the CRM so you can go back and see, but you don't necessarily want your whole team to see. So what HubSpot is releasing is a new way to control that. So just like you have permissions on what contacts people can see, what deals people can see, now we can add permissions based on what emails people can see. And so the owner of an email is not the owner of a contact associated with that email. It's the person that sent the email. And so it's a lot of control. This is still in beta. So there are a couple limitations that they're actively working on fixing. Basically, what those are is there's a lot of places in HubSpot where you can see emails, right? There are a few places in HubSpot where even if you have this beta turned on, you can still see emails that you don't own. They're working on closing those gaps. So I would say this is a tool that is at a stage that you can play with and experiment with. I wouldn't use this as I've got emails I absolutely can't have the rest of my team seeing. I would wait till it rolls out live to implement it if that's your situation. We can also now add external website pages to our campaigns. So this is another tool for the marketers in the room. If you're using the HubSpot campaigns tool, which I highly recommend if you're running campaigns, it's a great way to combine metrics across all of your HubSpot assets. It used to be all of your HubSpot assets. Now we can start adding some external assets. So let's say your website isn't on HubSpot, you're using Webflow, using WordPress, using Wix, whatever. Maybe you've got another landing page tool that you like, an Unbound or something like that. Now we can still add that page to our campaign and have it affect our campaign metrics. So we can still get metrics like the number of sessions across our campaign will count the sessions for that page. If somebody visits that page, it'll count them as an influenced contact by this campaign. So the only thing you have to do is there's a new button in there, external website pages. You click that, you put the URL in. You do also have to have the HubSpot tracking code on that external page. So as long as you have those two things, you're good to go. This is just a change that I'm starting to see across HubSpot that I think just makes it a little bit easier to manage things. So it's in public beta now. If you haven't seen it or haven't enrolled in the beta, you'll probably see it go live here in the next month or so. So it's a change coming to when you go into your marketing emails where you're sending all of your newsletters or your automated emails, and how you view those emails, there's a change to that page. And what they're making it be like is just like when you go into a view of all of your contacts or all of your companies, you've got all kinds of options about how you filter that view, and you can save those filters as saved views. That's what they're rolling out to marketing emails. So we've got a lot more options for filters. We can save a set of filters so we can easily go back to that, or other team members can easily go back to that. And they're starting to roll this out across all of the objects in the CRM. Marketing emails is just the next tool to get the update. Blocked numbers list. So this is, I think, a place where HubSpot has kind of seen the inklings of a possible problem as people started to use their calling features more and more. And I'm proud of HubSpot. I'm happy that they're doing this. They're getting out ahead of it, right? So now that HubSpot has inbound calling through those calling tools that we talked about earlier, what happens if you have a pesky spam or even something more malicious always calling you, right? There was no way to block those numbers. So HubSpot now released a way to block those numbers. It is still in beta. While it's in beta, if somebody calls you from a blocked number, they'll get a system message. So they get a message from HubSpot. To be honest with you, I don't know what the message says. I can get that for you, but it wasn't in the documentation. But when they roll it out live, it'll just be a blocked call, just like if somebody were to call your cell phone and you'd blocked it. So this is a great way to restrict spam and other calls that you don't want to receive. Just very clear, this is about inbound calls. It's not about blocking your salespeople from calling another person. Great tool that is an addition to the AI tools that HubSpot is rolling out across the platform. This is one that I've been excited about since they started talking about it as at inbound. So this is a new AI tool to generate subject lines for your marketing email. So this isn't the one-to-one emails where you open up a contact record and send an email in there. This is your newsletters, your automated emails. So what this is going to do is you create your email, and then you go to that settings page where you would enter your subject line. And you can click on the little generate button there that you can see on the screen next to the lightning bolt. What HubSpot's going to do, what HubSpot's AI tools are going to do, is it's going to basically read your email. And HubSpot obviously knows a lot about, the types of subject line that get opened and things like that. It's going to read your email, look at the best practices that it knows, and it's going to suggest 3 subject lines for you that are based on the content of your email. So it is AI. Whenever we're talking about AI and content, I like to use it as like every now and again, it creates something that's like perfect and you can use it. But at a very least, this is a great way to get 3 relevant subject matter or subject line ideas that might spawn the perfect subject line that you write, right? So like these 3, I'm not super excited about any of the 3 on the screen, to be honest with you, but they might spark an idea that you might have otherwise spent, 15 minutes trying to think of a subject line, right? So a great tool to speed up that time. You can also generate more ideas. If an idea is close, but not quite there, you can generate more ideas that are just like that with some slight variations. So just to speed up that workflow and maybe increase the effectiveness of your subject lines. If you're having problems with open rates and things like that, definitely give this a shot. It is in public beta, so you have to enroll, but as long as you're enrolled and you have Marketing Hub, you could use it today. And then second to last update for you, I did say my favorite one for last, but this one is just an update to your workflow creation process. So you may have already, it's in public beta, but it's actually sprung up in a couple of accounts already just as a rollout. So what you're going to see is if you're going and creating a workflow, I don't know if you've noticed this, but over the years, that list of like actions and trigger options, it's just gotten huge. And if you have a bunch of integrations, it's even bigger, and you're just scrolling and scrolling or searching and trying to remember the name of it. What they've done is they've condensed those into little expandable categories that makes it it just improves the flow. It makes it a lot easier to find the actions you're looking for. So it's a small update that I do think has a big impact. We've seen it on some client portals, and I've been a fan. All right. Last update. So it's a little simple thing that just makes it so much easier for your prospects and your leads to interact with you, to engage with you, which is what we want at the end of the day anyway, right? So if you're using the meeting scheduler where somebody can click on a link that you provide to them and book a meeting with you based on your availability, that's based on your integration with your calendar, it's one of the tools that we love to use. If you go to our consult landing page for anything we talk about today, you'll see it right there. So if you want to see what it looks like, and even if you don't want a consultation, simplestrat.com/consult, you can see exactly what that looks like. You can also just provide it in one-to-one emails. So great tool, awesome tool. What the new feature is it used to just be, okay, I'm Tyler, I want to book a meeting with Alexis. I'm going to go to her link, I book a meeting. Let's say I want Allie on that call too. Now I got to wait for that calendar invite and then forward it to Allie and invite her that way, right? Not a great user experience. What I can do now is I can add guests. So as the HubSpot user, you can define whether or not you want people to do it. But if you turn it on, then I would be able to go to Alexis's link and say, I want to invite Allie to this meeting as well. Allie will be added to that meeting link. She will get the invite and all of the reminders that HubSpot does a great job of automating for you. Allie will also get those as well. So great way to just streamline that customer experience. I don't know about you, but any salespeople on the call, I've seen the number of people get involved in purchase decisions, especially in the B2B world, has just ballooned over the last year, I would say, as economic conditions have grown and things like that have become more complicated, I guess I will say. What's happened is more and more people need to be involved in that sales process. And so this is just a great way to allow that to happen and provide those prospects and leads with a very clean experience. Okay, so that's all the updates that we have for you. I've got a couple more things before you go, and then we'll let you get back to your day. So next steps, we talked about a lot of updates. What I recommend is find 1 or 2 updates that could really bring value to your team and increase what HubSpot can do for you compared to how you're using it today. Once you find those 2 updates, you've got a couple options. We've talked a couple times. We can help you roll those out, figure out how to implement those, simplestrat.com/consult. Or if you want to DIY it, what I recommend is researching that update a little bit further. So the HubSpot knowledge base is your friend. You can click on your company name in the top right corner of HubSpot, go to product updates. There's more information there. Enroll in any necessary betas. And then I always recommend measure the impact that the update is creating for you. And then last but not least, before we get to questions, I really do hope to see you again soon. So we've got 2 events coming up. One of them I'm super excited about. If you know Kyle Jepson from all of his HubSpot updates on LinkedIn, really excited to team up with him on the 12th. So next week, we're going to be digging into the new leads object. So if you've seen that leads object, you've probably seen people talk about it. If you haven't, it's a great way to really track how you're engaging with people. It makes the sales team a lot more efficient. So we'll really be digging into, like, if I'm not using that today, should I be using it? If I should, what does that actually look like? How does that change how I'm doing things for my team? So we'll be diving into that on the 12th. And then next month, we'll have another webinar just like this, where we're going through all of the updates that HubSpot releases in December and a bunch of use cases for those. Typically, our webinars are the first Wednesday of every month. We're going to give you a little bit more time to recover from New Year's Eve and go to the 10th. So we're pushing it back just 1 more week, give the product team a little bit of chance to release some more updates as well. So hope to see you there. You can register for either of these things at simplestrat.com/webinars, and they'll send you to the appropriate registration link. So that is all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Alexis to moderate any questions we have.